Have you ever noticed how every other indie game these days slaps on some chunky pixels, tosses in a fake CRT filter, calls itself retro? Nah, man, retro isn't just about looking old, it's about feeling old. It's about the tight controls, the clever level design, the janky charm of games that were built on limitations, not nostalgia marketing. Now, half these so called retro inspired games feel like they were made by people who never even touched an NES. Just watched a YouTube video about one. Now, I'll admit, I've been guilty of that too. In my own way, when I'm hunting for inspiration, I'll scroll through random YouTube clips, find something cool, and try to recreate it with my own flavor so it's not just straight up copying. But see, I'm not out here making games from scratch, so this rant isn't about me. It's about those indie developers and big publishers who don't actually get what made the old pixelated games special in the first place. They just slap nostalgia on the box and call it a day, hoping people like us, will throw money at it for the retro feel. The real charm of those old school graphics wasn't just the pixels. It was the design, the simplicity that didn't talk down to you, the way everything on screen had personality, even with limited detail. Take Tarzan on the PlayStation 1 or Nintendo 64. That was my very first video game. It had this 2.5D style, kind of a blend of 2D and 3D, where most levels were side-scrolling, but some like the boat level or the family rescue mission went full 3D. You could chuck fruit at enemies, swing through the jungle, and everything just worked. What made it so charming is that even the rough edges added to the personality. The fruits were blocky, Tarzan's face barely had features. You could barely tell if he even had a nose unless you zoomed way in. But somehow it still felt alive. That's the kind of magic modern retro-inspired games just don't seem to capture. They mimic the look but miss the soul. Another great example is Crash Bandicoot on the original PlayStation. You could tell he was supposed to be a Bandicoot. Kind of. But you couldn't make out all the details or features back in those pixel-heavy days. The game was fully 3D, sure, but it followed a narrow linear design philosophy that worked beautifully. The art style simplicity matched the gameplay's simplicity. One-to-one, it was easy to pick up, but there was still depth there for players chasing high scores or that sweet 100% completion. That's the thing. Even with limited graphics, older games had depth. And some, like Rayman, went a step further. The pixel art almost looked hand-drawn, bursting with colors and personality. Even on systems like the Atari Jaguar, which had more pixels to work with, the art style still had that raw, handmade charm. The visuals weren't just bright, they were alive. Every sprite, every background had character. Compare that to a lot of modern retro pixel games, and it's like night and day. The new ones might mimic the look, but they rarely capture the energy, that sense of purpose behind every pixel. They've got the aesthetic, but not the soul. Games like Castlevania back in the day had substance. You could feel the atmosphere, the stakes, the artistry in every frame. Now too many developers just crank out pixel art because it's trendy, not because it means something. At the end of the day, the difference between real retro and fake retro comes down to intent. Back then, developers weren't chasing nostalgia. They were chasing innovation within limits. Every pixel, every sound effect, every line of code was pushed to its max because that's all they had to work with. Today, a lot of so-called retro-inspired games just copy the look without understanding the heart behind it. It's like they're wearing vintage clothes but have no idea what decade they're from, and that's what bugs me most. Nostalgia isn't something you can mass produce. You can't slap a filter on it and expect people to feel the same magic we felt booting up our first PlayStation or NES. That magic came from creativity under pressure, from design that respected the player's time and skill, and from games that were fun because they were built to be fun, not marketable. So yeah, call me old-fashioned, but I'll take those chunky polygons, blurry textures, and weirdly shaped faces any day, because at least those games were made with soul. not with a marketing pitch disguised as retro charm.